Is the world going to hell? Christians certainly think it is. I mean, are we in the last days? Is the rapture right around the corner? Well, let's see. Here is Joel Rosenberg on the Trinity Broadcasting Network giving us his take on the gloomy state of the world. And by the way, TBN broadcasts Christian programming and content in over 175 nations and 17 languages through more than 30 global networks across the U.S. alone. TBN is available in approximately 100 million television households, making it America's most watched faith channel, according to Nielsen ratings. So, broad, impactful reach, huge audience, huge influence. And that's important for what we're going to talk about today. Joel?
Well, I want to take a few minutes today, given all that's happening. I mean, massive war that's been raging here in the Middle East since October 7th, 2023. This missile battle that's been so intense between Israel and Iran. The United States getting involved, dropping the biggest non-nuclear bombs ever made in human history on the Iranian nuclear regime, plus Russia invading Ukraine more than 3 years ago, and all the death and all the destruction, all the carnage, and Communist China threatening to invade the democratic Chinese island of Taiwan. There's a lot going on, plus economic instability. The price of gold is skyrocketing. What is this telling us? And of course, artificial intelligence, which people are increasingly worried is going to basically take over the world. There's a lot of reasons why people are anxious. They are worried. And I see it. So are we living in what the Bible calls are the last days of history? He's coming for us, and he may be coming a lot sooner than we even realize.
Look at these comments to his video, which echo general Christian sentiments. I believe we are in the countdown to the start of the tribulation period. The rapture of the saints could happen any moment. Make straight your path, for the time draws near. Jesus will soon call his bride. We almost home. Thank you, Lord. Is Joel right, or has he, like so many others, fallen victim to cultivation theory? And let's take a closer look. Hi, everyone. I'm H.G.Roberts, deconverted Christian after 25 years and author of On Monsters and Phantoms. And here we talk about religious trauma and how the Bible itself ties us up in knots, leads to confusion, anxiety, fear, doubt, depression, emotional oblivion, mental paralysis, and ultimately trauma. I have a master's degree in mass communication, so I'm specifically interested in the messages the Bible communicates to us today, the cognitive filters in our brains that we use to interpret those messages, and finally, the harmful impact those messages have on our self and our worldview. Cultivation theory, developed by George Gerbner in the 1960s and 70s, proposes that long-term exposure to media, especially television, shapes viewers' perceptions of reality. The theory suggests that heavy media consumers are more likely to adopt beliefs and attitudes that reflect the repetitive and often distorted messages of media content, such as an exaggerated sense of danger or fear of crime. We often call this mean world syndrome, or to use Christian language, broken or fallen world syndrome. Cultivation theory says that media functions as a cultural storyteller that gradually shapes worldviews. And several videos back, we explored agenda setting, another media theory that influences how Christians think and perceive the world. If you haven't seen that one, you'll want to check that out. It's important to have a foundation in this theoretical framework to understand how Christianity, through cognitive manipulation, has survived and thrived for so long. But once you understand that Christianity is just another media channel, you see how the sausage is made, so to speak. With social media exploding over the past couple of decades, there's certainly plenty more access to information through more media channels and inputs, if you will, meaning our personal worldviews have even more opportunity to be shaped, for better or for worse, by the media that we consume. And when algorithms are feeding you content you already crave, well, Your views risk being shaped ever more intensely and quickly. This is cultivation theory at work. Let's establish something critical right up front. The Bible is a media source. The church is a media channel. Believers consume Christian media. This media shapes their worldview. And when Christians consume Christian media, either through reading their Bible, sitting through a sermon, or watching Joel Rosenberg on TBN that depicts a mean or fallen or broken world edging ever more closely to the end times, well, guess what? They tend to believe that we are, and they look for proof of this under every rock, which is called confirmation bias. A kid on the sidewalk calling his mother an idiot. Well, we're in the last days. Unrest in the Middle East. Well, we're in the last days. Tsunamis crashing into Japan. Well, we're in the last days. Christian media, again, whether the Bible, books, the church, or TV shows and movies, elevate the heart rate of believers by making them believe things like wars, disease, natural disasters, and political shifts point to an intensifying timeline toward the end, even if those Christians have never actually studied eschatology nor critically thought through what the Bible actually says and means about this nebulous end times doctrine, which centers around historical Roman oppression and occupation. Christians reinterpret prophetic scripture to align with their church-based presuppositions, and they work themselves into a frenzy preparing themselves for the end because time is short, they believe, because their media keeps reinforcing that message. Jesus told us nobody can know when the end is coming, but he says there will be signs. If you squint just right at those signs, you can lay them over any other time in history and claim that the end was near. Many people have, and of course, have been dead wrong. Google all the times people made prophetic claims about the end times. It's a favorite pastime of Christians. We elect a new president, the end times. We hit a new millennia year, the end times. I really hate to break it to you, Christians, but y'all don't have this right. You've been riled up by the media you consume. End times prophecy or eschatology was a major source of my religious trauma, and it still is for countless others. Children who believe they'll be left behind in the rapture, believers who agonize over loved ones who reject the gospel message and will be left behind, believers confused about whether they will endure the 7-year tribulation at the end times or not, because Christianity can't agree on the timeline and what actually happens. Thanks, Bible. The end times created in me the unbearable weight of fear and anxiety that I discuss in other videos. So you better believe that toward the end of my tenure as a Christian, I was researching the hell out of it. And when I did, it all fell apart. It doesn't mean what you think it means. Christians want it to mean what contemporary pastors erroneously teach it to mean because it validates their beliefs and it puts them, they believe, on the right side of history. And it fills the seats on Sunday by giving believers something to prepare and look forward to. To be fair, though many Christians interpret current events as signs of the end times, with the world worsening day by day, there is a strong countercurrent within Christian commentary urging viewers to avoid alarmism, to focus on hope and stability, and consider alternate interpretations. But once again, the Bible is of no use or help to us in determining truth, but it is great at creating panic and trauma. So again, long-term repeated exposure to Christian media can shape one's perception of reality, identity, and the world beyond just the end times. Regular exposure to messages about spiritual warfare, persecution, or moral decline may cultivate a sense that the world is hostile or dangerous to Christians. And Christians do love themselves a good persecution complex, even though America is mostly a Christian nation. Cultivation theory can also shape how believers view gender roles, sexuality, or salvation. For example, a person raised watching conservative Christian television might come to view society as under threat from secularism or sin, shaping a defensive or even adversarial posture toward non-Christian groups or beliefs. So Joel Rosenberg and others, heck, even the Bible itself, will have us believe the world is going to hell in a handbasket. And if you consume this Christian media exclusively, like I did for 25 years, you'll likely agree. But there is substantial data suggesting that in many measurable ways, the world is better today than at any other time in history. This includes indicators related to poverty, health, violence, and education. You can easily find statistics from trusted global sources to support these claims. Let's take a look at some. Extreme poverty, defined as living on less than $2.15 a day, has plummeted. In 1990, over 35% of the world lived in extreme poverty. In 2022, that number dropped to less than 9%. Global life expectancy has doubled over the last 150 years. In 1900, it was about 32 years. In 2023, it's around 73 years. Child mortality, death in kids under age 5, is down. In 1990, about 93 deaths per 1,000 live births. In 2022, about 37 deaths per 1,000. Vaccination rates have soared, leading to the near eradication of diseases like polio, measles, and smallpox. How about literacy rates? In 1800, only about 12% of people could read and write. Today, over 86% of the global population is literate. Access to education has expanded dramatically for both genders across most regions. Homicide rates have decreased in many countries over the long term. Historical data shows far higher rates of violence in medieval and pre-modern societies. Modern societies are statistically less violent per capita. Despite media visibility, deaths from war and conflict are far lower per capita today than in most of the 20th century. Undernourishment is down worldwide. Over 5 billion people have access to the internet, smartphones, and information. Basic utilities like electricity and clean water have reached historically high coverage. Quality of life, consumer choice, and innovation are at their peaks. Despite this progress, though, we know there are still issues to tackle, like climate change, inequality both within and between nations, political instability, rising mental health concerns, etc. But even still, let's not throw the baby out with the end times bathwater, shall we? You've heard the old adage, you are what you eat. Well, cultivation theory says you will believe the media you consume, in terms of it giving you a bleak outlook on life and the world around you. Why is this so dangerous? Because it makes Christians think the time is short, meaning they go on the aggressive offensive trying to convert others. They ram this hideous end times doctrine down the throats of children, traumatizing them without even knowing it. Children don't know how to process this horrible teaching, but they do try to imagine it, which cultivates, pun intended, stress, anxiety, and fear, which makes them cling to other harmful doctrines like original sin and hell. It's all bound up together. I know some will counter with rising depression and suicide rates, and I'd like to see more studies about this, meaning I suspect that hidden beneath the superficial layers, people may have a subconscious belief in inherent self-worthlessness because of the toxic doctrines of Christianity that are so pervasive. I was my most suicidal when I believed I had become worthless to God. Okay, thanks for being here, everyone. I want to personally thank Brennan Gilbo for purchasing my memoir. I really appreciate that, Brennan. I hope you'll share a review. If you want to support this channel, please like, subscribe, share, comment. All that stuff goes a long way to helping the channel, but a way to do that financially, since I don't have Patreons or sponsors, is to do what Brennan and others have done and purchase On Monsters and Phantoms. It's my memoir about severe religious trauma and deconversion from Christianity, and consider leaving a review. I like to say it's the only book you're going to want to put down from time to time because it's so intense. Well, if that's your bag, then this is your book, and the link to it on Amazon is below. I really appreciate that. If you do buy it, let me know so I can publicly thank you in my next video. I try to put out 1 to 2 videos each week where we take a deep dive into what religious trauma is, how it forms, in whom it's most likely to form, and what we can do about it if it does form. If you'd like me to cover a specific topic, let me know down in the comments. And if you're new here and curious about religious trauma or think you may be suffering from it, explore the channel, have a look around to see what other topics I've covered and what resources are available to you. And until next time, say it with me, let's continue to catalyze a conversation together about religious trauma to let those who suffer from it know that there's hope, and to let those who dismiss it know that it's real.